Hi, I'm Freya Barker, and as promised to some, here is an excerpt from Head Start, the seventh and final book in my Cedar Tree series. Um, it's a pivotal moment for Kendra in this book. And so, anyway, I won't delay. Here it comes. Look at me. I have a hard time lifting my eyes. I simply don't want to see what I know I'll find in his. It was inevitable, really. I knew from the instant I found him in my house this afternoon that this moment was coming. Oh, I'd grabbed onto every excuse that seemed reasonable to evade it, but every time he'd touch me or kiss me, any resolve I had melted. His controlled restraint, when I could feel his body's need to burn, was an added aphrodisiac. He toyed with me, and I was putty in his hands. He fed me grilled chicken and pineapple smothered in a spicy peanut sauce, and it was so good. I almost had an orgasm on the spot. No, I had no doubt we'd end up right here in my bedroom. You're thinking too hard, pup. I can hear the wheels turning over here. It's simple. All you have to do is trust me enough to look at me. His voice is gravelly, deep with a veiled need. It's not that I'm unsure of his want for me, his interest in me. It's that once we take this further, there's no going back. No way back to the casual friendship, the occasional flirts, to delicious fantasies that inevitably followed, and no way to erase the look of recoil when I'm bared before him. Look at me, he urges, and I slowly lift my head. He's sitting on the edge of my bed, his hands holding my hips as I stand between his legs. All I see in his eyes is faint amusement and heat, so much heat. His hand reaches up, and with only his index finger, he strokes my cheek, follows the contour of my lips, and skims along my jaw. My body responds to that simple touch with the lightest of shivers. With his eyes boring into mine and a little smile tugging at his mouth, he drags his finger down my neck, over the flushed skin of my upper chest, and across the smooth tops of my breasts. Lift your arms, he says softly. And I don't think. I simply raise my arms and allow him to remove my tank top. His eyes are like an anchor, never losing their connection with mine. He carelessly tosses it aside, his finger instantly back where it left off. My breath hitches when the callous pad of his finger reaches my nipple, the slight abrasion sending tingles over my sensitized skin. When he leans forward and wraps his lips around the tied bud, I'm the one to break eye contact when my head falls back and my mouth opens at the sensation. Warm, wet heat, pulling all the way down to my core, the low vibration against my skin as he moans around my flesh. I'm mesmerized, seduced, and virtually blind to all but the impression he leaves on my body. His hands, fingers wide, spread across my back, pressing me tight to the suction of his mouth. I don't notice the one hand sliding around to my front, molding my breast until his mouth suddenly releases my nipple, and fingers start tracing the raised, puckered skin underneath. I stop breathing. I can sense him leaning back, examining the deep divots left behind by the skin necrosis that resulted from my surgery many years ago. Behind my closed eyes, every last insecurity freshly surges in my head, making it impossible to take a breath. I knew, once I gave myself to him, Neil would have the power to break me. No one else has, because no one really mattered, not until him. Breathe. His breath strokes over my skin just before his lips touch. The small kisses he presses under my breast cause my breath to release in a sob. In an instant, I'm on my back in the bed, Neil hovering over me, his forehead resting on mine and our noses touching. Listen, he whispers, his eyes staring into my blurred ones. I've never tasted skin more beautiful than yours, or softer. Even without ever touching or tasting it before, I knew I would. Just like I knew all of you would be as magnificent as what little you allowed me to see before now. There are no parts to you. There's only all of you. There's no room to process his words because the moment he stops talking with words, his body shows me in the clearest language, skimming, stroking, brushing, licking, biting, each touch setting me further on fire. Neil, please, I plead, when I feel his weight leave me, only for a moment, before the brush of his clothes against my body is replaced with the heat of his skin. On instincts, my legs open to make room for his hips. Yes. A few deceptively lazy strokes of his long, deft fingers along my crease before they slip between my folds and into the wetness gathered there. Fuck me, I manage, as my hips start moving against the fierce rhythm he's building. Please, I need your cock. You'll get my fingers. You'll get my mouth, and when I've heard you scream my name, you'll get my cock, because, pup, once I slide inside you, I'll be fucking you hard. The sound of his coarse voice wrapped around those words has me writhing against his head, reaching for the release building inside. Before I can even protest the loss of his fingers, his lips and agile tongue replace them, sending me soaring again. One arm braced over my hips to hold me in place. His mouth eats at me like a starving man. When I'm teetering on the edge, he slows his pace, keeping the climax just out of my reach. Let me come, please, Neil, I need. In one swift move, his body's over mine, our lips almost touching. Taste yourself on me, he growls, before claiming my mouth. The tang of my arousal, mixed with Neil, is heady. I can feel the crown of his cock probing at my opening, slick with my juices. Neil's head comes up, his eyes focused on mine, and his hand slides down to my leg, lifting it in the crook of an elbow. I can't hold back, he grinds out through clenched teeth. Then don't, I whisper, followed by a deep groan, as his long, hard length fills me. So good. Our bodies become a blur, a growling, clawing, furious frenzy of passion. I forget where I end and he begins. It doesn't take long for me to reach that precipice again, trembling briefly on the edge before falling into a blinding orgasm with his name on my lips. My body is still convulsing around him when he lifts my other leg, spreads me wide, and hammers his release inside me on a groan. Pure beauty. His lips whisper against my skin as his body collapses on me. Okay. Sorry for the mistakes. I slipped up, but it's such a long excerpt that I'm not going to do it again. You're just going to have to live with it. It's all me. Hope you enjoyed that. And I will try to do another excerpt for my next release, which is Through Fire. I'm very, very excited about that. I cried big tears writing it, which is not usually my thing, but what are you going to do? And that will be released on July 19th. And it's the third of the Portland, Maine novels. And those of you who've read the ones before, From Dust and Cruel Water, know that those books are quite emotional, strong women who each find their HEA, happy ever after. And Ruby does too.